U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs survey is something I've been covering a lot. There just seems to be trends in my topics, and this has become one of them. So I had mentioned before that there was a survey, a digital one that I received, I'd completed. I went over the question or the information about that. You can check out that video if you want /podcast. It's up and available now. And I said I'd cover it, and true to my word, I am. The survey, when it came, the paper one in the mail, I think that it looked different than the digital one. And I think it was a lot longer, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's just the format that made it seem longer. It came in an 8-page booklet. 8-page booklet. And that's really long. And I'm really surprised at how long it was. I've never seen a healthcare survey that long. It's from this company that's via some kind of contract that I suspect called Ipsos. I initially received this postcard in the mail about it. I whited out some information for my privacy. And then it was basically saying that you're going to be getting this survey in the mail. The VA, I've learned, loves to send way too much mail. They love wasting paper and ink. It's a thing that they do. They just cannot help themselves at all. It's pretty inefficient, in my opinion, what they're doing, and I don't care for it. All right. So then also I received the actual one in the mail in this envelope here. Big, white, governmental looking envelope here. This is what it looked like. And the company's name, Ipsos, is on the back of it that I mentioned, the very top, if you can see that. I'm not quite sure if you can. Anyways, inside the envelope was another envelope where you could return the healthcare survey, and it was an 8-page booklet. I have completed it, and I have placed it in the envelope, and it's about to be mailed out as soon as this video is over with today. However, I also included a letter because there was despite what it said on the prior informational survey thing, there was no place to write comments. So I wrote a letter and I included it because I did not feel that the survey was at all indicative of the experiences I've had with the VA recently or ever. And also, there was a lot of mundane, routine healthcare type questions, but they're asked in such a way and they're so detailed. I don't think most people could remember the answers to them to answer them accurately. So I repeatedly said, I don't remember, because it's just stuff I wouldn't store away. Like there was such boring, mundane questions. I can't remember what they were because that's how not memorable they were. So I'm going to go ahead and read the letter I wrote, and more problems have emerged from the VA from my direct experience today, actually. And so that's going to lead the rest of this video. And I redacted some of this letter that I typed up and sent in with my survey because to protect my privacy and the privacy of one of their managers. To whom it may concern, my answers to the survey hardly reflect my direct experiences of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. My experience of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is that while there are many exceptional humans that work inside of the organization, that the organization itself is corrupt to its core with an evil streak. I have nearly 10 years of experience dealing with and tolerating the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Through these nearly 10 years, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has become the bane of my existence and my nemesis. The organization seeks to purge honest employees and deprive military veterans of their right to informed consent, quality healthcare, and empowered healthcare choices. For example, today, May 27, 2021, I learned that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is intentionally blocking military veterans from filling prescriptions of any kind from non-VA healthcare providers, meaning that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is continuing to deprive military veterans of their informed consent rights, healthcare empowerment, and engagement as a human being. Also, so I'm going to pause right there and elaborate on what I'm talking about. Okay. So basically, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later about what was referred to. It's actually, I'll just get to it now. The VHA Veterans Health Administration Outpatient Pharmacy Handbook 1108.05 is what's being referred to. And in that, basically, the VA is relying upon it, which I read it and I strongly disagree with it. And I'll get to that later. Is trying to basically say, we refuse and we don't have to provide any type of prescriptions of any kind for any military veteran, even if they're eligible fully for healthcare services here, unless we can control that provider, meaning that that healthcare provider works directly for the VA as an employee, or that healthcare provider is in the community care network, which is basically an insurance network. Okay. The reality is that there's many licensed healthcare providers, and many of them are not going to work for the VA or be in that network. And so you're going to have military veterans, one way or another, they're accessing care, even if it means paying out of pocket at times, paying cash, for example. Healthcare providers that are fully licensed, that are fully reputable, that may be specialists in certain areas for healthcare services, and they may make recommendations, because that's what healthcare providers tend to do, and may prescribe medicine if they're a prescriber, because that's what healthcare providers in some cases do if they're a prescriber, and that the VA is refusing to honor those recommendations and those prescriptions, is what I was told today by the Alexandria, Louisiana Veterans Affairs Medical Center pharmacy. Okay. And that is the VHA Outpatient Pharmacy Handbook 1108.05. You can Google that. It's public information, is basically what they're relying upon to do that. I disagree with it, is all I'm going to say, and I'll move on from there. So I really disagree with this, because basically the decisions that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs makes, I've noticed historically and to this very day, are directed and centered on limiting veterans' choices and controlling veterans and making them a captive audience. And Congress even has a hard time controlling the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs because it's so out of hand. And that's why they created things like the VA Mission Act 2018. That's why they created the Deborah-Sampson Act that was recently passed, very recently. That's why they have all this legislation like the VA Accountability Act 2017 that came about. That's why they have all this legislation coming about, and they're trying to micromanage the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs because it's just out of control. And their management consistently try to sidestep the laws and try to ignore the laws that they're supposed to be following, and try to make policies like this one that they're trying to point out, VHA Outpatient Pharmacy Handbook 1108.05. They continue to try to create policies, or try to present policies in such a way so as to limit the rights, the empowerment that a military veteran could potentially have in their healthcare decisions, and informed consent rights to be able to have all the information through, say, a second opinion outside the VA, to really be fully engaged and informed about their healthcare decisions. And cutting off access to their pharmacy for licensed, legitimate healthcare providers providing legitimate routine prescriptions is despicable. It's despicable. And that's what the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is doing right now and getting away with it. So I've already started a congressional complaint. I've already filed another one today about this very issue. And I've submitted a abbreviated letter to the Veterans Affairs Office Inspector General. And I don't know if any of that is really going to matter, but the reality is veterans have to push back against these type of things. And I don't know, honestly, how veterans are getting really their needs met at all, and the healthcare that they need through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, because it's a problem at every single turn. And it's a problem in such a way that it's like, it's unexpected, the problems that you would encounter, because it's just so routine and so mundane. You think, like, how could this become a problem? And then it's like a problem because the management at the VA are constantly making decisions against military veterans and honest employees. And this is yet another example of that. And so the congressional complaint, I filed through Mike Johnson's office. I believe that they'll help me. They've helped me in the past. They've been a great assistance. I plan to point this out through their office, which I already have, and to make them answer on the record. And then I'm going to report right back about that. Right here is where I'm going to do it, because I've tried for nearly 10 years to work things out with VA management. This organization does not want to work with anybody. Okay. They don't want to work with anybody, this organization. Now, there are exceptional people that work there. They're mostly going to be in subordinate positions and not decision-making positions. Okay. And the VA does not like to keep people around that don't hold the party line of what these managers want them to say and do. Has been my direct experience and what I've observed of this organization. I read about a military veteran who had cancer. There's many of them now, thanks to toxic hazardous exposures during their military service. Okay. Especially during certain deployments, I've noticed, and some domestic. Okay. You can check out CCK, Hills and Ponton YouTube channels. They have a lot more information if you're interested in that. I'm not going to be covering that today. But one of those military veterans was in a news article not too terribly long ago they were receiving oncology cancer treatment from an expert oncologist, and their oncologist was making recommendations about what medications that they need for treatment of their cancer. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, according to that article that I read, was blocking their ability to fill those potentially life-saving or life-extending medications. Okay. So I don't know if that is connected to this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. More people have to legally fight back against the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in all ways possible. This organization has a lot of allies, like the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, in my opinion, which more often than not will side with the VA and help their Office of General Counsel, which I'll put up here. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and Office of General Counsel I'm referring to, Veterans Affairs, will help them, the EOC, help the OGC with basically helping the VA management get away with whatever. Okay. That was my direct experience. All right. That's why I just abandoned the process. And the Merit System Protection Board isn't any better. And the Office of Special Counsel, I have a pretty low opinion of as well. Okay. And that was during the time I worked there nearly 6 years ago, back when those were the only things that really existed. Compared to now, there's more bureaucracy and layers, and I haven't dealt with any of that, thank God. I got out, I quit the job, I couldn't take anymore because I was being retaliated against for whistleblower disclosures. Okay, so I also reported this information to Office of Inspector General in an abbreviated letter, not because I necessarily think that they'll do anything, but one thing that they noted in the letter and on their website is that they look for patterns of complaints. So if they receive enough complaints, according to what they said, they'll look into things further. So I feel the need every time something big, in my view, is coming up on my radar to go ahead and report that to the Office of Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in order to basically they can make note of it. Maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But, I'm just going to let them know and make note of that. But I'm just horrified and continue to be astounded on a daily basis the volume of decisions that are made inside the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs against military veterans and the people that support them, that work there. And I've said for years, and I'm going to say it again, thousands of Veterans Affairs managers need to be terminated from their employment immediately nationwide in all these different facilities that they have and run. And until that happens, these types of decisions being made against veterans will never stop. When I worked at the VA, I cannot tell you how many disparaging remarks were made by VA employees and management about veterans. And not all veterans are perfect people, even if they're in management at the VA. This I know for sure. And not all civilians that are not military affiliated are bad. This I know for sure. Sometimes you have non-military affiliated civilian managers that are excellent, that are truthful, that are going to keep it super real if they get tasked with an internal investigation. I've seen this firsthand. It happens. And I've seen the reverse, where military veterans that are in management positions will do the opposite. So, people are not perfect and people are unique. And so it takes all kinds. But we'll see what becomes of this now. I'm not really holding my breath. It's very obvious to me as I communicate with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and, with this congressional office and with, it's obvious to me that not that many military veterans are really questioning what's being said, and I encourage everyone that's a military veteran or having to deal with the VA that if you're being told no to something and not getting your needs met, I really encourage you to do what I did today. And it's something I have to train myself on. And that is to get the name of the person that is telling you no. What department do they work in? Okay, that's very important. So there's like a bazillion departments at the VA and all their different branches. Okay. And that's something I've been guilty of not doing, is that if there's an inquiry or complaint of any kind, the first question is me, well, who'd you talk to and what department were they in? And if you don't know that basic information, it's a problem. And then the third thing is a lot of times they're going to cite, sometimes, not always, a rule, a policy, a regulation, a law. Sometimes they're not. Either way, make sure you get the information about whatever it is that they're citing and write it down so you can look it up, so you can do your own research and figure it out. Today, they did not cite a policy, rule, law, or regulation. I had to ask them, where is this coming from? I had to go through 3 people. The third person, a supervisor, did call me back after they did their research I was able to communicate with them. And they did give me the information that I just gave everyone their mother, which is VHA Outpatient Pharmacy Handbook 1108.05. I disagree with this, and I am challenging it immediately through the OIG, through a congressional complaint, and I'm publicly advocating for change because these policies are detrimental to veterans. And the veterans should be there, Veterans Affairs should be there to serve veterans, not whoever decides to just make up these rules. And I don't know. I'm going to be researching more about it because there's more that I don't know that I need to know about. Okay, so also in my direct experience, this is back to my letter that I sent in with the survey today, the VA survey, the chief of a certain department, I redacted that, and possibly one other person whose identity I do not know intentionally blocked my right to informed consent, healthcare empowerment, and choice by denying my community care referral. I don't know how common this is. I don't have access to that information, but it's happening to me. I bet you it's happening to a lot of other people. I complained about this. I did a whole video series on this / podcast series. And I did report this to Office of Inspector General of Veterans Affairs and also Congressional Office about this. And I also made a bunch of videos about it. I reported this illegal. Okay, I already mentioned that to you. And then the denial was reversed. Shocking because I raised hell. All right. So yeah. All right, so just kind of summing it up in my letter. I'm challenged. So the truth is that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Management overall does not want military veterans to have choices. This is what I believe. There's good managers at the VA, but there's a lot of bad ones. I've just seen enough to know that it's not at one facility, it's not one region. I believe it's at all of them. I really do believe it's at all of them. After researching, studying, working, dealing, receiving services from this organization, I believe it's all of the VAs. I think it's a systemic problem. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Management overall want military veterans to act like robots and take orders and to obey their authority so as to preserve their taxpayer-funded salaries, benefits, and retirement benefits inside of a very broken taxpayer-funded civil service system. That's my opinion. I believe that based upon my experience and research of the organization, I believe that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is likely one of the most corrupt, if not the most corrupt federal agencies that America has to offer, while simultaneously currently holding, to the best of my knowledge, I read this online, the second largest budget of all of the federal agencies in America. And a lot of people think that all that money is going to military veterans. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't. Google Veterans Affairs mismanagement, money, corruption, do those keywords. You can start reading articles about money that has been wasted time and again on mismanagement of building projects, on corruption, on bonus money, on all of these things. And Congress likes to act like there's some helpless victim, like, oh, I didn't know what was happening. They like to do that. I'm actually going to do a history of the secretaries of the VA video about this topic, because the VA secretaries are just frequently used as scapegoats. And granted, they're not all good, that's for sure, but they're not as bad as what's made out. And honestly, even when you got a bad one, they're surrounded by a bunch of bad people. It's not just one person at the very top of a supersized organization that's creating the problems. It's the organization itself that's creating the problems and the management inside of it. Not just one, a whole bunch of people, okay? This is a systemic problem. It's not just an isolated person type problem here going on. It's very naive to think that it is. I used to think that when I first started out working in the organization, and I realized very quickly as I was observing and researching, that's not the case. Instead, Congress has enabled these problems in many ways and is only just in recent years started to try to rein this in. And even congressional politicians, some of them acknowledge that they have very limited control over this organization. I mean, it's a monstrous organization. It's just huge. They've created a monster. And, there have been performance measures that have been created by Congress, which have enabled corruption inside the organization, bonus money being given out to managers. I've learned the hard way that some people will do anything for $1, anything. And Congress has failed to take appropriate responsibility for the issues inside the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, engaging on political theater when they have these hearings about the VA, and not taking responsibility and owning their role in the dysfunction of this organization, because there is plenty of blame to go around. This is not just a one-person problem. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is a propaganda machine, intentionally misleading the public and the military community alike about their intentions. And this is true. They have so many resources that they're devoting to propaganda. You see that this is a lot at the national level. I'm not seeing it so much in the regional level. Propaganda being pushed out on social media platforms, videos, podcasts. social media posts. Yeah. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is immune from almost any justice and accountability, especially within their management ranks. The Veterans Affairs Office of Inspector General, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Office of Inspector General, they have been kind of leading the way with actually holding people accountable on some level at the VA, which is a miracle of sorts that anyone's been able to figure that out. I recently heard that there was allegedly an arrest of some kind with an employee at the VA for allegedly engaging in some illegal behavior. I'm not going to get into it because I don't have the article in front of me, but I saw it. I was really happy to see that, just to see that there's real justice and accountability being served up at the VA for once. I really believe that's the tip of the iceberg, and a lot more needs to show up in that way. But it's a big organization. It's a just enormous task. I actually called in the Office of Inspector General today, and I called their numbers, a number of them. I couldn't get through any of them, so I ended up just using their facts and fax them what I had to say about my latest complaints. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs management have made and continue to make decisions that are not best for honest U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs employees and military veterans. I believe the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs could care less about military veterans or the people that truly want to serve military veterans. That's the truth as I see it. That's my opinion.